Welcome. In this video I'm going to be taking a look at this Syvisions USB 4.0 NVMe M.2 SSD enclosure. So this was provided to me by the distributor, but they're not compensating me for this video and they're not reviewing it before I post it. If you find this video helpful and you want to purchase one of these, I'll put a link to it in the description on Amazon, and if you use that link, it helps me out a little bit and doesn't cost anything extra. So this supports Thunderbolt 4.0, USB Type-C, has a built-in fan, and it supports USB 4.0. Here in the back we have some specs. You can pause and read through those. Here are the package contents. It has the enclosure, Thunderbolt cable, rubber stoppers, thermal pads, and user manual. So let's get this open. So here's the enclosure. Feels like it's made of aluminum. And we have the manual. We'll take a quick look at it. So here's a breakdown of the parts. This talks about installing an SSD. So it looks like there's a little groove here we'll use to open it. You insert the hard drive into the interface. Looks like there's a little plug or a clip that holds the other end in. You close the case, then you connect it to a computer. This has some precautions. You want to read through those. Here's the Thunderbolt cable. It's around 20 inches in length. And here we have thermal pads. So it looks like we have a thin and a thick, 1 millimeter and 0.5 millimeters. And this is the little rubber plug. So let's open this up. So I want to pry here. Now I may need more than my finger. I'll just use this rubber pry tool. If you have longer fingernails, you might be able to just pop that open. And here is the inside. So the SSD I'm going to be installing is this Crucial P5 Plus. Now I did buy this myself, and I have a number of NVMe SSDs. This is one they recommended on Amazon for this enclosure. Pull this out. So this is a 1 terabyte SSD. I'm going to plug this in here. So when I plug these in, I like to just rock them back and forth the tiniest bit to make sure they're lined up. Then we have the little rubber stopper, and we want to press that into the little notch, and then this will press into the board, like so. So this has 2 thermal pads. So there's a little spot in the lid for that. So I'm going to put in the 1 millimeter thermal pad. Like so. And that seems to fit. I'll pop that back out. So I hadn't pulled the adhesive off yet. I wanted to make sure the thermal pad would fit. So I'll place that in the lid. And I'll put this back on. So on the end here we have power fan, and we have the USB-C port, or the Thunderbolt port. So I'm going to connect this up to my computer, and then we'll run some speed tests on it. So I'm currently plugged into my mid-2015 MacBook Pro, and I'm not using the cable that came with it. I'm using a USB-C to USB-A cable, and this is running at USB 3.0. Now I will be testing this out on Thunderbolt 4, but I do have a message saying that it's not recognized by the computer, so I will initialize it. So that takes me into the disk utility. I'll erase it. Now if you're using this on Windows, you can use Windows format, obviously. So I'll name this. I'll hit erase. It's done. So now I'll do a speed test on it. So here we're getting around 420 megabytes per second write and 420 megabytes per second read. So now let's switch over to my Mac Studio with M.2 processor and do a speed test there with the Thunderbolt 4 cable. Okay, so now I'm at my 2023 Mac Studio with the M.2 Max processor, and this supports Thunderbolt 4. So I have Blackmagic speed test up. I have my drive selected, and I'll hit start test. So you can see this is way faster when you're using that Thunderbolt 4 interface. So we have around 2400 megabytes per second write speed and 2700 megabytes per second read speed. Okay, in here I have some video files. I don't know how large these are. I'll copy them over and then we'll know. But let's copy these and we'll just see how long it takes. I'm not going to time this. I'm just going to see how responsive it is and how long it takes. So it's 9.36 gigabytes. It said it copied in about 5 seconds. So as you can see, that was very fast. So that was the Syvisions USB 4.0 NVMe M.2 SSD enclosure. So when you have this hooked up to a newer computer that supports Thunderbolt 4.0, you're going to get great speeds out of this. I know you can buy a lot of pre-made SSDs. I think this is the better way to go, is to put your own SSD in one of these Thunderbolt 4.0 enclosures. You're oftentimes going to get faster speed than the pre-made SSDs. And it's really not that hard to put an SSD in one of these. It doesn't really even require tools. And of course, I was using that Crucial P5 Plus SSD. This seemed to work very well with this enclosure. So I have some other NVMe drives, but I'm just going to leave this one in there. I think it worked very well. And I also showed that this did work with older systems if you have the correct cable. Of course, you're going to have those slower speeds, but it is backwards compatible. The nice thing about this enclosure too is it does have a fan. You can hear a little bit of fan noise if you put your ear up close to it, but otherwise it's pretty quiet. I actually like that little bit of noise so you can tell it is working. So if you have something like a MacBook with a small hard drive, you can connect this up. If you're doing video editing, you can put your video on here, and you can usually just edit the video right on the SSD. You don't have to copy it to your hard drive. This would also work great for backing up. If you have to back up large files, you can do it very quickly with a drive like this. And then when you're not using it, you can unplug that cable, and you have that really durable aluminum enclosure. It's not very big. It'll easily fit into a bag. So that's all I'm going to cover in this video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you like this video, please click like. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd appreciate if you could do that. And thanks for watching. Until next time, goodbye.